Welcome to Layered Insights, a 3D printing podcast. I'm Alex,
I'm Matt.
and this week we're going to talk about 3D printing and how this technology really has the potential to help in chaotic situations, and that's 3D printing. So, Matt, where do we start?
I think we should start with during the pandemic.
Mm.
Um,
Set the pi-
s-
set the scene, if
yeah,
you
yeah.
will.
I think 3D printing was around the pandemic. More people were getting them in their houses, and a lot of people were just making fun little things with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, of course, the pandemic hit. Everyone was stuck at home, and people were needing emergency either equipment or even just
Well, like there was like
safety.
a mask shortage. Like we didn't, we were,
Yeah,
I,
the
that's
mask
where I
sword.
remember
Yeah,
the initial thing was like people didn't know if they'd have masks. They were saving them for the emergency workers. And so it was like, well, what are you gonna do? And
yeah.
then, anyways, go from there.
People started, a couple movements came up online with people trying to print some of the masks or come up with kind of universal designs that a bunch of
Mm.
people can print and donate along with masks, and people were printing different things so they could open, like, contactless ways of opening doors, interacting
Yeah.
with objects. People were even looking at different ways to make I think it was the ventilators,
Yep.
design, because those were they were short ventilators, so designing a way to make that using 3D printing and be able to have more of them, even if it's not a perfect ventilator or, certified by the FDA. We were in
Yeah. It's
shortage
an
and it was an
emergency
emergency,
situation.
so
Yeah.
the stuff like that you can get away with. So I think that 3D printing kind of came to the rescue with that a little bit. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, we can't get this equipment from China, or
Mm-hmm.
we can't get enough of it, we're short supply.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, there's tons of people at home that have the 3D printer. So it's like, let's get these files, right,
Mm-hmm.
distributed to everybody, and then have centers where people can donate the printed goods.
Yep.
And a lot of them were going through some type of, checking the parts and stuff and make sure they were good for whoever they were going to give them to, the hospitals and stuff. But
Yeah.
it, you know, it, being able to quickly manufacture stuff is one of the things that I think 3D printing shines at, and the how easy it is to distribute the 3D models for other people to print them across the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Yeah. Shipping routes were down. Like we literally couldn't, the supply chain broke during the
Yeah.
pandemic. And that was I think what helped accelerate like 3D printing because I mean it's no surprise and it's being talked about more and more. Like America has not had a large manufacturing base in a long time. So this was a an eye-opening thing that even something as simple, I mean it was toilet paper at one point,
Yeah.
like was super expensive and and there was no supply. It was like it really was game changing in a lot of ways and I remember figuring out how to combine a TPU with a PLA and I was able to get it to adhere in printing. And so then there was a mask with the flexible part that was against my
Like a
face,
gasket.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very very interesting because luckily I had a bunch of plastic at home already, a bunch of rolls, so I wasn't worried about like getting any new ones.
Yeah.
Um, and then the ventilator stuff I didn't help with, but I do remember people that were just involved in saying, "Hey, I have a 3D printer. I can
Hmm.
help." I remember jumping into a call that was in the Massachusetts area with the amazing health system that we have here. So there were big names that are in that industry on this line, and everyone was just like trying to offer their help. A lot of people were, I mean, you could just tell super stressed because their whole business was like, we don't have any orders. We need to bring in orders. So it was a lot of desperation too. But I remember just being on that call, not so much that I thought I was going to help in any large way, but it was just a bunch of people that raised their hand and now we're on this Zoom call and they're sharing it. It was I still haven't fully like unwinded all of that. Like it was a strange thing. And then at the end of it all, I think the thing I 3D printed the most was the mask ear relief
Oh, yeah.
thing. That was probably the thing that probably made it made it out the most. But yeah, I didn't I didn't think I was gonna have that much of a flashback, but there we are.
Yeah. It seemed like, at the time, because we're in the Massachusetts area, the companies that knew about 3D printing were reaching out to a lot of the 3D printing companies in the area and being like, "Hey, do you think there's a way we can make this or make that or help out?"
Yeah.
So it was,
The nasal swab ended up being 3D printed and
oh
compensated for
yeah,
that. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
So it's definitely like use the tools you have at hand,
Yep.
especially when you can't manufacture or get it from across the seas or when the supply chain's disturbed. So
Hmm.
it's it definitely shined a light on, I think, even in the media, 3D printing.
Yeah.
But now I think we want to bring it right now we have maybe a second semi-emergency with the tariffs
Yes.
and how, that might bring, well, part of part of the reason the tariffs is to bring more manufacturing here, but even the traditional manufacturing is still we don't have it built up and in place for it to be even close to as affordable as it is across
Yeah.
seas. So some people are starting to look at using 3D printing locally here to get past the tariffs.
The tariffs are an interesting situation because it's chaos in a totally different way. It's less about the
Hmm.
supply chain being broken and
Yeah.
more just being expensive.
Yeah, saving
Like
money.
every step, like just like the supply chain issue, it makes people try to dig deep into their process and be I'm thinking more of these like big companies, like they've outsourced so much of the process and had like all these different stops that part, an assembly, or whatever they're selling, a product, like goes through before it actually ends up in someone's hands. Now, all of that process could be affected by any of those changes in obvious ways and not obvious ways. As chaotic as it is for people like us that have 3D printers and know how to use them, this is almost an exciting time because there's so many opportunities for 3D
Yeah.
printing to like jump in and be useful. And one thing about 3D printing is it's like a customization, like it's amazing for customization and like a few use case parts. There's going to be a lot of those
Yeah.
with this tariffs and how it affects prices. And even I was reading an article on LinkedIn about military programs, and if just a single part, even just like the plastic connector that connects something for whatever they're using, like that could cancel the whole program.
Yeah.
But you could jump in and fix that with 3D printing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how many parts or we'll try to transition to 3D
Mm.
printing. Because, yeah, like you're going to get, every part that's coming across seas might be taxed differently. So people might be trying to move operations to other countries that get taxed less.
Oh
But
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
I mean, you still have a lot of, if you're making consumer products or other products, a lot of parts are coming from a lot of different places.
Hmm.
So once you have those lines in place, it's hard to change everything and find new providers and stuff. But we can usually turn around those parts a lot quicker than a lot of those people are finding a new manufacturer.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting because when, we're calling this a semi-emergency, not really compared to the pandemic, but like when people need something to turn to, right? They'll usually turn to the newer technologies or newer advancements and see how
Yeah.
they can utilize them, like 3D printing, to solve whatever the problem is, whether it's the emergency supply chain or, parts costing more money.
Yeah. Are there certain things that you've started to notice that have already been affected? Like, have you thought of any interesting places for 3D printing to be useful?
I mean, it's always going to start with the low production stuff.
Hmm.
So I think little things that companies need or, little things that consumers will buy that aren't sold in like really, really high quantities.
Hmm.
So I would say a lot of internal use parts for big companies and then parts that smaller companies are selling to consumers. I think
Yeah.
that's, a lot of the smaller companies can utilize the technology because, they're not going to be selling at scale as other companies, so they don't need to do injection molding. It's actually would
Right.
cost them more money and they'd have to actually be able to sell a lot in the long run.
Right.
So it's a lot easier starting point for a lot of small companies to start with 3D or even continue just use 3D printing because you can do smaller batch numbers and
Yeah.
produce it here and it can be a little simpler and
Hmm.
cheaper.
I love that. It's a great call. And like, it's funny. A lot of these will be like things that were obvious with 3D printing before, but I feel like they're more real now. Like that scenario is going to be more real for people these days. Even so, everything's just going to get potentially more expensive, right? So, like, even if you're not directly affected by it, like, it's also the time to start saying, hey, like, we got to look at our process. Like, is there something we can do to, like, cut down how much work and time and cost we're putting into the same thing by putting in a jig for, I think we talked about painting something or, assembling and making it easier and more repeatable,
Yeah.
increasing the quality so that you'll be able to make the sales with that higher price, without putting
Mhm.
in that much more labor. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can do it that aren't directly affected to the tariffs.
I mean, I think the tariffs will obviously also affect us in terms of buying
Mm,
new equipment, printers, and potentially materials too. A lot of that
mhm.
still comes from overseas, and some of it does get manufactured here, but it could cost us more to even be able to. Our prices might have to go up just because of that to our customers,
Yep.
which will make it harder to even convert to us too.
Hmm.
So it's still currently up in the air right now, but it could still be even going through local 3D printing and them having to pay the tariffs for materials or printers would probably still be cheaper for low production run stuff.
Yeah, the electronic stuff was my biggest concern. Um, so I ended up buying another another upgrade for my Prusa for multicolor just to have it as a backup.
Yeah,
Found it on eBay. I paid less for it. I think it was good timing because it was a lot of uncertainty on the tariffs. It was before that like 90-day delay or whatever they
yeah.
did. So I got a snag, but I spent more money than I was intending to do.
I think the used market for stuff is gonna explode again.
Yeah, and it didn't really die down. So like used cars were super expensive still, like
Yeah.
even since the pandemic. That's an
That
interesting
was, I
market.
think, more
Yeah.
on shortages
Yeah.
too. So,
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I didn't realize how close it all really was to each other. It feels like it's been
yeah,
forever, but at the same
it's
time.
still recent.
Yeah, the effects are still there for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and the other place that it's interesting that 3D printing like as a technology can jump into these like chaotic situations. Like I feel like that's a unique thing that we had talked about
Yeah.
doing that episode, but I'm like the more we talk about it, the more I'm like interested in that idea. Like there aren't a lot of things like that. Like
A lot of
I've
stuff
talked
are
Oh, go ahead.
purposely built and specialized.
Yes. Yeah. Like one of the things that I'm really interested in and hopefully one day we'll be able to work on is like 3D printing in space and harsh environments, right? Like putting a 3D printer on a rover or whatever else it needs to be to go on the moon or Mars to like build structures out of the soil beforehand. Like
Yeah.
that is a huge value add for 3D printing, even though like sending rovers isn't as exciting as sending humans. Like
Hmm.
it's also the thing that can help it make it safer for the humans before they even get
Yeah.
there. I would love to see the first 3D printer that's on there. It's gonna have to dig the soil, process the soil, print it. Like that's gonna be wild.
Yeah. Imagine in the future, if we want to go to a planet, we send robots there to 3D print structures and whatever we need there before we even get there.
It's gonna be
Uh,
crazy.
Way in the future, but that would be crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's
Uh,
cool. NASA actually has, and they've done, I think they're on the second simulated like Martian visit, like these analog astronauts. They like
oh, yeah, I've heard
go.
about that.
Yeah, so they had that 3D hab that was actually 3D printed with like a soil. So it's like they're actually simulating these missions with something that they would possibly print. So
Deploy, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of wild. Those 3D printed buildings are, we'll have to do a whole episode on those, but like the
Yeah.
concrete ones. But again, like I guess that's another chaos situation, right? Housing prices, like 3D printers helping in the chaos of the cost of a home,
Yeah, I've
you
talked
know?
to some companies that want to do it because it could be cheaper, and then go into these places like Massachusetts that have housing problems and print affordable housing
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right. It's like another circumstance where using it in kind of not an emergency, but a problem solving thing. Yeah, that's interesting. Another example.
Yeah. We found a conundrum.
Yeah. It can be a solution to multiple problems,
Yeah.
different types of problems.
Yeah. And that's a good tool, right?
Yeah.
And then and that's I think where our expertise comes in. It's like then it's like you've got to know it enough to be able to use it, and then
Yeah.
one of us can come in and be like, "Oh, you could use it here," you know?
Or I think I like I want to go back to the space example or
Mm.
like harsh environments example, right? Like in space, right? I think they've had a couple of plastic printers in space. I think that now they have a metal printer in space, but like, do you know how like the amount of if they need a tool, they need something,
Hmm.
if they can just print it there on board, it saves us so much money.
Oh yeah.
You probably know the numbers better than I do, but like how
Mm.
much, per pound it costs to ship something to the space station, right?
Oh yeah. So like sending humans or cargos basically, well at least for humans they're paying $50 million a seat. That's for so 200 million to launch for humans. And then like a resupply to the space stations probably in that 50 to 100 million. So
Yeah.
there's a mass limit there. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but even more to your point, when you go to space, you have a limited mass that you're allowed to bring up. That's what all the calculations are on, is how much everything weighs, and it's got to be
Hmm.
calculated and positioned properly, even to get into space. So you're not going to be bringing like wrenches or like extra stuff. Like there might be one set on there that's brought up, you know? But like in the space example, you could have, and they've done this one where you have plastic on station, you need a certain torque wrench that you don't have up there. You're not going to wait and pay 50 million to send up the one wrench. You can send the file to the printer and print it with the raw material that you have. So
Or
that
even
becomes like your real magic sauce where like you could materialize something that you didn't have and can't have, but you can with the 3D printer. That
even
like,
yeah, especially even if like parts break, right? Because
yep.
usually a lot of these places will have replicas on Earth, right? So they
Hmm.
can design it, test it, prototype it,
Right.
right? And then send them the file, and then they can print the repair part, and it
Yeah.
already be, tested and perfect.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then,
and you can even do design feedback, right? Like even with the like what is it, like 8 minute delay for Mars, like you could still have a productive conversation back and
yeah,
forth and like get way more. I mean, you'd have to have the hands-on example on the Mars. I've been thinking about that a lot lately with the space podcast is like this this idea of like troubleshooting on Mars. Like
yeah,
you don't have live. That's not a thing. Like your whole setup is going to be like that 8 minute delay between you, and it's going to change like throughout the year. So it's like you're not going to even get used to like a
it makes me
like
think
a
of
regular communication.
the
Um,
movie in the book, The Martian, how he was stuck
yes,
on Mars, right?
exactly.
I don't remember if he had a 3D printer, but like,
Yeah.
what if he did?
Yeah. Well, my favorite example of this is imagine how different Apollo 13 would have gone if they had a 3D printer in the hub. Not that they would have saved the mission, but like that issue with the CO2, that famous scene of dumping the box of
Yeah,
parts so that they could get the filter to work. You solve that in like a few hours
yeah.
on that mission, you know, with less stress. Like maybe you know, I don't know how the 3D printing would work in like the limited environment in there. You know, we've got, I mean, I guess you just deal with the VOCs and the microparticles,
Yeah,
but
I mean it's
uh
should be all filtered anyways, but
right, right. But yeah, like the Hail Marys that could be possible by having a 3D printer on board in space, to me, make it a no-brainer in the future of human space travel. Like, especially going somewhere else, like it would be really funny where like the 3D printers that you have up there, just because of the material, is like the soil, right? So
hmm.
like maybe you have like some crazy binders and some other like you've got like an oven or something, but like there's no metal. It's just everything's made of like Martian soil. So
Yeah.
like your wrenches, you're like they're all just ceramics or something, you know? Like you just got to deal with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I think this also goes into the military too.
Mm,
So I think some bases might have, there's a couple of printers out there that specifically target having on military bases, so like metal
mm,
3D printing on military bases, or even it's a printer right now for being on Humvees or, being able to
yeah.
print on the move. So it's like,
Yeah.
when you do break something or you need something, you can print, either with metal or even these higher engineering polymers to get
Yeah.
great replacement parts or stuff
That's
you need.
yeah, 100%. Like the battlefield is such a crazy scenario of chaos. Space is like so there you've got you there could be people it's just like on your you could die delivering whatever part is going to get there and it may not be there in time for
Yeah.
that scenario. The space scenario is you won't get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to have it.
Yeah.
Uh and then the pandemic was it broke down so the cost to get anything if you could would just skyrocket. And then yeah, with the tariffs it's a financial barrier and 3D printing like helps the part move at the speed of light.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause right. It's across the internet. So speed of light. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's that's the supply chain is the do you have internet?
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, when you brought up that last example, I was like, wow, it's all about getting the part to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah. Especially if like, right, both the military and space kind of like have home bases where they can,
Mm,
people can sit there and CAD model and test and prototype and then
right.
send it out into the field. So,
Mm,
uh, well, I'd say even like the pandemic was, right? It was like
yeah.
that. People were testing it and then they're sending it out into, the field of America where people could print it and then donate to
Yeah.
the nearest hospital and stuff. So it's the models and everything's very deployable, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, manufacturing when I was growing up, I was the 90s kid as yourself. Like it's one of those things that we had a lot of manufacturing at that time. There was a lot of products being made, not necessarily in the US, but definitely more than
Yeah.
today. And it seemed so abundant back then. And then now in the age that we live in, it's we're seeing the limits break of the manufacturing in our own and in every country right now, right? Those levers are have the potential to skip and all that stuff, and that's going to cost everybody else more. What are your bigger thoughts on just manufacturing in a country for the US, maybe for other countries? It's a kind of a bigger question, but I'm wondering what your thought is on all of this as a manufacturer yourself.
Yeah. Like I've already had a company reach out to me looking to start manufacturing 3D printing in the United States because of the tariffs. So,
Mm,
it could end up benefiting us. But I don't know, I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
mm,
Either way, for whatever reason, I think people are going to end up adopting 3D printing more and more, whether it's the tariffs or the supply chain issues or whatever, I think other things
yeah,
will end up coming up in the future that might push more people towards the technology. But I could see it as a benefit towards us if we can still get, printers and the materials at not too much higher of a price. I think it's good that it will make people explore different types of manufacturing processes
mm,
instead of what they're doing now in like China or Asia, right? Hopefully people realize it makes sense for a lot of low production parts
mm.
and then they can get it quicker. They can iterate and change the parts quicker. They can ship it quicker since it'll all be done in the United States.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm very optimistic on the long term of manufacturing. You know, I
Hmm.
started in injection molding. That was my first engineering job. So I've seen traditional manufacturing. I've seen what that workforce is like, what those people are like, and they're amazing. And it's not an easy like manufacturing is not easy. It's not for
No,
the people who want to make a ton of money fast. Like you're gonna have to work for it. But if you're kind of the person that likes to see the fruits of your labor literally every day, there's nothing more satisfying than that. And I think there's a lot more people getting introduced to it because of 3D printing that it does mean a lot to. So I think like Prusa, I think was a big moment in that kind of culture, that maker culture, that do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like they were the first, and it had the open source behind it. So there was a lot of great community that got built up from that. Bamboo has made the technology, especially with the multicolor, so available and so affordable that and easy that
Yeah,
like
easy.
that has introduced more people that have like started companies. So I think that momentum is really underrated because it's been nonstop. Like that kind of community keeps growing,
Hmm.
and more people get 3D printers. The big question I think will be, can companies in the US adjust and build their own manufacturing strategically and fast? Like that's kind of the two things that they need.
Yeah.
Like the number I hear getting thrown around is 5 years. It takes 5 years to build your industrial base, which I don't know where that number comes from, but that's what people say. I think that you don't have to jump into the whole thing. Like you can start strategically taking steps out, but it requires training. It requires skilled workers, at least to start. Like maybe you get AI down the road, but like I don't think you're going to start with AI, especially not in the next five
No.
years.
No.
So there's a lot of things that are not being done, like the pay of those skilled workers that I think some companies that go out of the break the mold on that may win. But I think the area that I'm focusing on right now is like the companies that are adopting 3D printing fast
Hmm.
and they need to get solutions. And then also people that want to start a business or start or create a product for the first time.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I'm getting those people too.
yeah, there's a lot of those folks, and like that group has grown definitely year after year. So I think that's where I see the momentum in the US. In the EU, I mean, they've been ahead of us maturity wise on 3D
Yeah.
printing and manufacturing.
A lot of companies been using like
Yeah.
look I'd say one of the bigger examples is like the train systems, right?
Mm,
All the train companies have been adopting 3D printing for different things. So I think they're a little bit ahead on the adoption of the technology and integrating it into their manufacturing processes or even just using it at different companies.
yeah.
And then I think the other thing I want to see more companies do is because it's the the bar has been lowered so much to creating new and custom products. I want to see more companies, you know, finding a problem at the company and say, hey, before it wasn't cost effective or we didn't have the people to design this or whatever,
Yeah.
something that custom made that would be help them in a process or something, right? Then be able to identify problems and be like, okay, here's a solution and a part that can be made for that solution.
Yeah.
Now we can just go out to one of us, right? And we can engineer it and design them apart and manufacture, 50 of them. And it
Yeah.
would be cost effective and it'd actually be worth making the product for them to, save time or make a process or make
Hmm.
something easier. I want to see greater adoption of making like super custom products for different
Mm.
companies that just could help them in some way. You
Yeah.
know, products that aren't on the market or it's so niche that there's no market.
Mm.
But before, it cost too much money to get something designed and then the tooling for injection molded or machined or whatever. Now it's like a quick turnaround and we can iterate and stuff like that. I want to see
Yeah.
the market for those types of things increase. I think that's where one of one of the areas where 3D printing can really accelerate.
Yeah. I love that a lot. I responsive product development almost.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, especially on the marketing front, or if you're like paying attention to the day to day of where interest moves and demand, like, yeah, you could, you've got to have the right team together. But if you have the right team,
Hmm.
you can do a quick short run thing like mid quarter and get profit and results out of that, and
Yep.
or more importantly, data, right? It's like it's investing low cost into something that has a high potential return. Like, that's
Well, it's like some of the products I make for one of my clients where it's like, they have a system, some of it's like robots or
Mm,
mechanical systems, and they want to be able to, there's no holder or thing for this type of part. So they want it to fit with this interface and they'll be able to hold this part, right?
yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that doesn't exist, but like that's something we can easily 3D model and print very quickly. So
Mm,
it's like almost simple little things that you don't think about, but
yeah.
it's like, oh, if only this machine could be used with this, or if this could do that, or I need something a
Mm,
fixture for this. So it's very specific things,
mm,
but it's people just need to be out there thinking about it,
yeah,
efficiency and stuff like that.
yeah. I've always been surprised by it's something that I've always lived by with what I've been doing in 3D printing, but I don't necessarily know what the part is gonna be that's gonna like let the search like guide you into what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
there's so many niche examples and things that like if you stay curious and keep asking questions, like there's so much out there to be done.
People have to understand the technology more and what can be done
Right.
so
And
that
showing examples like that, even if it's not even what they're gonna think of, it could
Mhm.
spark just a quick
Exactly.
thought. Yeah, that's one of the most fun things about this process for me is saying the right thing, showing the right example that sparks that light bulb in someone's head, and it's like, all right, we're off and running. Let's go. You
Most of the
know?
time that light bulb won't even go. So like, oh, this can't be done. But then like, you can show them what you can do with 3D printing. It's like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
I've like thrown away like 10 ideas because I didn't think is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So getting having more people think about it, understand what the technology can do, lets them go more with their ideas and not just discard them and say, hey, no, this can't be done. So
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of those little things that's like in the
Mm.
past they would just be discarded, but now it's like, yeah, you can do this, somewhat
Mm.
cheaply and make the parts.
And to tie the whole thing up in a bow, like maybe the reason why 3D printing is so good in all those chaos scenarios is because the reason to find an answer is
Yeah.
higher.
And you have
You have the
people have like
motivation. Yeah.
people have that part in mind that they need,
Right.
right? So then
Right.
they're like, okay, can we print it?
Yeah. Yeah. So the chaos is like focusing us on the problem more, maybe.
Yeah, it focuses
Yeah.
on the applications and the individual parts that are needed, right?
Mm. Mm.
So it puts kind of more a spotlight on like, can we do this?
Right.
It asks that question more than like, no, it's not really possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it possible? How can we do this? And then just like how do we make this happen? Like it's just
Yeah.
like you get more confident the more that you try it. Yeah.
And you're more desperate, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Uh,
It's an amazing motivator.
yeah. Not quite the motivator we want
No,
to
it's
advance the
not first choice.
technology,
No.
but it is one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a great episode. Do you have any other final thoughts, or do you want to dig into anything else?
No, I think that's it. I think we'll talk more about some supply chain stuff and a
Yeah,
couple other things in another podcast.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Matt, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me at niche3d.io. You can email me at matthew.guy@niche3d.io, and I'm on LinkedIn at Matthew Guy.
Awesome. And I am at eg3d-printing.com. You can check out all the part detective services as we're building brick by brick here with the business. We've got our Etsy shop, eg3dprinting.etsy.com, and you can email us at eg3dpartdetective@gmail.com, and we'll get this conversation started and help bring your ideas into reality. That's it, folks. Stay
Keep printing.
curious. Keep printing. Keep printing, and we'll see you on the next episode of Layered Insights. Thanks for joining
See
us.
ya.
See ya.